Today's lesson is Rio de Janeiro, Brazil's marvelous city. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And it's our travel unit for the month of February. And right now, of course, it's right before Guonian, or Lunar New Year. And maybe you're thinking about traveling during the holidays or traveling during the summer. And you might want to go to Brazil in South America. And we're going specifically to the city of Rio de Janeiro. It is a marvelous city in Brazil.
Yes, it is. And especially during the month of February, which is usually when Carnival falls. And Carnival can be described as the biggest and best party in the world. Because if you happen to be in Rio de Janeiro, when there is Carnival, then you will experience something that is unlike anything else in the world.
Exactly. A lot of people talk about going to Carnival if they go to Brazil. But if you go down there when Carnival is not occurring, well, it still can be a really fascinating place. So let's learn more about Rio de Janeiro in today's program. Let's listen to the first part, and we'll be right back.
Rio de Janeiro, Brazil's marvelous city. Located along the mountainous shores of Brazil, Rio de Janeiro is a city that needs no introduction. This lively and culturally rich metropolis is a magnet for travelers from around the world. Rio's past, including its role as the Portuguese royal family's refuge during the early 19th century, adds a fascinating layer of history to its modern charms.
大家好，首先我们来看单字 mountainous， 它是形容词，意思是多山的、庞大的或是巨大如山的。例如 The northern part of the country is snowy and mountainous. 这个国家北部常积雪覆盖且多山。或者 Don's desk had a mountainous heap of paperwork that needed to be handled. Don 的桌子上有堆叠成山的文件需要处理。接下来介绍名词Metropolis， 它的意思是大都市或是大都会。例如 I prefer to live in a busy metropolis. Small towns bore me. 我比较喜欢住在繁忙的大都市，小城镇让我感到无聊。或是 The city of Tokyo is one of the world's largest metropolises. 东京是世界上最大的城市之一。再来是单字 refuge， 它是名词，指的是避难所、庇护处、庇护或是避难。举例来说 Thousands of families are seeking refuge from the war. 数以千计的家庭正在寻求能躲避战争的庇护所。下一个是名词 layer， 有层次、阶层或是层的意思。例如 This novel has many layers of meaning. It's perfect for bringing up classroom discussion. 这部小说有多层意义，非常适合带出课堂讨论。再看一个例子The apartment's owner put a new layer of paint on the walls before renting it out. 那间公寓的主人在出租前将墙壁刷了一层新油漆。
Located along the mountainous shores of Brazil, Rio de Janeiro is a city that needs no introduction. Now, since Rio de Janeiro is quite famous and everyone has heard of it or has some kind of image of it, it really needs no introduction, which means we don't really have to explain much about it. We don't have to say where it is, what it is, because it's already quite well known as a place. And the sentence also points out that Rio de Janeiro is located along the mountainous shores of Brazil. Here, the word mountainous means just having a lot of mountains. And shores refers to the land around the edge of a sea or a body of water. So you can imagine that Rio de Janeiro is located near the shores of Brazil, and it's quite mountainous.
Right, of course, mountainous means there are lots of mountains, just like Nantou County here in Taiwan. It's very mountainous. whereas Yunlin County is more flat. It's not so mountainous as Nantou is. But in any case, Brazil has lots of mountains as well, especially along the shore. And so Rio de Janeiro is located along the mountainous shores of Brazil. And it needs no introduction, which means everybody knows about it. It's so famous that you don't need to introduce it. You often hear this phrase used when you present a speaker at a conference or something. Our next guest speaker needs no introduction. And this lively and culturally rich metropolis is a magnet for travelers from around the world. A metropolis is basically just a really big city.
Yes, it's a really big and important city, and it's often the capital of a particular country. So New York can be described as a metropolis, and so can London and other places like Tokyo, and perhaps even Taipei. So Rio de Janeiro is a culturally rich metropolis, and it's a magnet for travelers, which means that it attracts travelers. Travelers are attracted by Rio de Janeiro, and they go there to visit.
Right, it's a magnet for those travelers. They all want to go there. And Rio's past, including its role as a Portuguese royal family's refuge during the early 19th century, adds a fascinating layer of history to its modern charms. So, of course, Rio has a past, it has history, and it was once a Portuguese royal family's refuge during the early 19th century. So Portuguese here has to do with things from Portugal, including the language. They speak Portuguese in Portugal, and they speak Portuguese in Brazil. A lot of people think that they speak Spanish in Brazil, but they don't really. They might understand it a little bit, but if you want to go there, you should probably learn some Portuguese. And the royal family once went there for some sort of protection, so a refuge is a place you go to for protection.
Right. So here we're referring to the Portuguese royal family. So that means Portuguese can refer to both the language and also the people of Portugal. And the word refuge relates to a place where you go in order to escape from something. Originally, it was used to describe a place of protection. For instance, during wartime, people might take refuge in the basements to escape the enemy soldiers. But today, refuge can also refer to a place such as a beach house or the countryside where people go to relax. And they may say, I'm going to go to the country. The countryside is my refuge because they want to escape from the hustle and bustle of city life.
Right. Of course, where I'm from in the Midwest of the United States, we have lots of places for wildlife. They are called wildlife refuges or a wildlife refuge. It's a place where wildlife can live and they don't have to worry about being hunted or killed by other people. They can go there for protection. And with all these things, they add a fascinating layer of history to the modern charms of Rio de Janeiro. So here we've got a layer that's like a quantity of something, or it's a sheet of something, of material that goes on top of something else, and you can put many layers of something on top of something else. Here it just means a fascinating aspect of the history of Rio de Janeiro. It's just something else besides all the other things in Rio to be interested in. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson. Here comes the second part.
One simply cannot visit Rio without being struck by the impressive landmarks that define its horizon. Standing on top of Mount Corcovado is the famous Christ the Redeemer statue, a 38-meter-tall symbol of faith and an engineering wonder. The towering figure's stretched-out arms embrace the urban jungle below and can be spotted from nearly anywhere in the city. Close by, Sugarloaf Mountain rises dramatically from the sea and offers awe-inspiring views of the city, the bay, and the coast.
One simply cannot visit Rio without being struck by the impressive landmarks that define its horizon. So if you go to Rio, the first thing that you will notice, or one of the first things that you'll notice, would be all of the landmarks. And these landmarks, some of them are so big or so interesting looking that they define the city's horizon. So horizon here simply means the line that's really far away from the land or sea, and it's the line that seems to separate the sky from the land. For instance, you could say, if you're on the beach, I see a boat on the horizon, which means you see a boat that's really far away on the line separating the sky and the sea. Or you could say that the sun is setting on the horizon.
Right. So, of course, if you're in Rio and you look on the horizon that surrounds the city, you will see some of these landmarks. They've got a really famous one there called Christ the Redeemer. So, standing on top of Mount Corcovado is the famous Christ the Redeemer statue. Okay, so we've all seen pictures of that. There's this guy standing on top of a mountain with his arms outstretched. You might wonder who the heck that is. Well, Brazil is mostly a Catholic country, so that statue is going to be Jesus. It's not going to be the Buddha or someone like that. It's actually Jesus, and this statue is called Christ the Redeemer. Someone who redeems somebody, just gives them new life, gives them a fresh start.
Yes, and this statue is quite tall. It's 38 meters tall, and it's a symbol of faith. And it's also an engineering wonder. Engineering refers to the work that's involved in designing buildings or building roads and buildings and bridges and things like that. And since this statue is so big, it required a lot of engineering technique and skill in order to build it, to make sure that it stands, that it doesn't fall, and that it can last for a long time.
Engineering, of course, is the branch of science and technology that is concerned with designing and building and using things like with engines and things like that. My brothers were both engineers. My oldest brother was a civil engineer, and my second brother was a chemical engineer. But in any case here, it's an engineering wonder. It was a miracle to build that thing on top of that mountain. And the towering figures' stretched out arms embrace the urban jungle below and can be spotted from nearly anywhere in the city. So something's tall and noticeable. We say it's towering, just like Taipei 101 is towering here in Taipei. You can see it from pretty much any part of the city. You can probably see it on the number 3 freeway as you're approaching Taipei. But in any case here, it's a towering figure, and it has its arms stretched out. And it's embracing or giving a big hug to the big city, the urban jungle below. And you can see it from anywhere in the city as long as you're not being blocked by a bunch of buildings.
Right, and close by, or close to Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain rises dramatically from the sea and offers awe-inspiring views of the city, the bay, and the coast. So if you were to stand on Sugarloaf Mountain, you would be able to see a spectacular view, or a view that is awe-inspiring. Something that is awe-inspiring is extremely impressive in a way that it makes you feel like what you're looking at is incredible, amazing. It inspires awe in you.
It's awe-inspiring, so again, you can go check out that statue and have some really wonderful views of the city and of the bay and of the coast. And of course, it's going to provide you with lots of photo opportunities or photo ops. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson. Let's finish things up for today with the third part.
Heading deeper into the heart of Rio, you'll discover a wealth of cultural gems. The Celaron Steps, decorated with over 2,000 colorful tiles from more than 60 countries, are proof of the passion of artist Jorge Celaron. Nearby, the Carioca Aqueduct, a colonial aqueduct turned modern tramway, draws the eye with its graceful structure. And of course, Copacabana Beach, with its golden sands and clear blue waters, invites sunbathers and swimmers alike.
第三部分来看到名词 tile， 这个字的意思是瓷砖或是瓦片。例如 The walls were covered in beautiful tiles that had pictures of flowers on them. 墙上铺着有花朵图案的漂亮瓷砖。或是 This house is beautiful. The roof covered with red tiles is especially quite elegant. 这栋房子很漂亮，尤其是红瓦屋顶相当雅致。最后来介绍 colonial，这个形容词的意思是殖民地的或是殖民主义的。例如 The neighborhood is known for its colonial architecture. 那个邻里以其殖民时期的建筑闻名。又或者是 British and French colonial influence lingers for a number of countries in East Asia. 英国和法国的殖民影响持续留存在好几个东亚国家。另外补充名词 colony C-O-L-O-N-Y colony 这个单字是殖民地的意思。我们可以说 Hong Kong was formerly a colony of Britain 香港以前是英国的殖民地。又或者说 There might be a space colony on the moon in the future 在未来月球上或许会有太空殖民地。
Heading deeper into the heart of Rio, you'll discover a wealth of cultural gems. So before, we were looking at the shores of Rio and the great statue Christ the Redeemer and Mount Corcovado. Now we're going to go deeper into the heart of Rio, and there you will discover a wealth of cultural gems. So first of all, a wealth of just means a lot of or many of something. And gem here is a word that signifies a beautiful stone. So you could say that a diamond is a beautiful gem, but it can also be used figuratively to describe something that's very beautiful or very special.
Exactly. So you'll see some cultural gems as you go further into the city of Rio. We have a wealth of cultural gems. We have a lot of things that are valuable in terms of culture. Let's talk about some of those gems here. The Celeron Steps, decorated with over 2,000 colorful tiles from more than 60 countries, are proof of the passion of artist Jorge Celeron. So we've got the steps here, and these steps are decorated with lots of tiles. Tiles are pieces of ceramic that have been fired in a kiln, and they're usually square or rectangular in shape. There are other shapes as well, but of course tiles are most oftenly seen in your bathroom, but of course you can see tiles on roofs of buildings or on the walls sometimes. And these are very colorful tiles, and they've come from more than 60 countries. And, of course, they were created, or they're proof of the passion of this artist by the name of Jorge Celeron.
Yes, and nearby, the Carioca Aqueduct, a colonial aqueduct turned modern tramway, draws the eye with its graceful structure. So nearby the Celeron Steps, we have the Carioca Aqueduct. An aqueduct is a structure that once carried water across from a source that was far away into another area where water is then distributed to individual homes, businesses, and so on. And aqueducts usually were built in the form of a bridge. So if you went to Rome, you could go to the countryside and look at some ancient aqueducts. But here we have the Carioca Aqueduct, which is a colonial structure, which means that it was built at a time when Brazil was still a colony of Portugal.
Right, so colonial has to do with colonialism. So, of course, here in Taiwan, you can see lots of colonial structures from the Japanese era. There are old buildings here and there that were built in the Japanese style. So those, of course, are from colonial times. And the noun form of this word is colony. We could say that Taiwan was once a colony of Japan, or the Philippines was once a colony of Spain and the United States, etc., etc. So we've got colonies. We used to have lots of colonies all over the world. And yes, Brazil was once a part of Portugal, but it later became independent. So this aqueduct was built during colonial times. And, of course, nowadays it's not used to move water around the city. It's used as a tramway, which is kind of like a railroad in the city, right?
Right. A tramway would be a set of rails that form the path for a tram, which is like a bus or a train. That's what a tram looks like. It's kind of half bus, half train, but it's powered by electricity, which is conveyed by cables located above the tram. So instead of railway, we say railway for those tracks that guide a train. Here we have tramway, which is a set of rails that guide a tram.
Right. Of course, we had tramways in the United States hundreds of years ago, or at least maybe 100 years ago. They've all pretty much disappeared. But again, those are like streetcars that go on tracks. in the streets, but here they're using the old aqueduct as a tramway, and so you can use it as transportation, and you can also just look at it and get some great pictures. It draws the eye with its graceful structure. So indeed, it's probably really a pleasant thing to look at and again to take pictures of. And of course, if you have the opportunity to ride on the tramway of the aqueduct, then it will be a great experience and you'll remember it for the rest of your life. And of course, we've got Copacabana Beach with its golden sands and clear blue waters. It invites sunbathers and swimmers alike.
Right, so Copacabana Beach is famous and everybody likes to go there. You don't have to be just a swimmer. If you don't like to swim, you can just lie on the beach and look around you and appreciate all the beauty.
Right, so it's got golden sands there. That just refers to different areas with sand and great beaches. And it's a great place to sunbathe and get a suntan if you're into that sort of thing. Or if you just like swimming, hey, head down there and check it out. I would not go there myself because I hate getting sand in my swimming suit. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分的第一句写道 One simply cannot visit Rio without being struck by the impressive landmarks that define its horizon. 人们来到里约时，不可能不被塑造其地平线的壮观地标所震撼。好，这边有两个重点。首先我们来看句型，主词加上 cannot 加原形动词 without 加上名词或动名词，这是表达不怎么样就无法怎么样，一定要什么什么才能怎么样。那这是用双重否定来强调出肯定的语气。举例来说 Some people think they cannot survive without their smartphones. 有些人认为他们没有智慧型手机就活不下去，一定要有智慧型手机才行。那我们再看个例句是 You cannot leave the restaurant without trying their homemade cakes. 你到那间餐厅一定要试试他们的手工蛋糕。那课文里呢，它是在 without 后面接 being struck by 点点点，这是被动用法。那这边我们来学习一下 be struck by somebody or something 的用法。Struck 它是动词 strike 的过去式或是过去分词。那 strike 原本是指打击，在这边就有打动啊，使留下印象的意思，常常会用被动语态 be struck by somebody or something 就可以表达被什么打动，深受什么吸引，或是对什么留下深刻的印象。那意思就会跟 be impressed by somebody or something 很相近。举例来说 I was struck by her passion and determination. 我对她的热忱与决心印象深刻。好，那么看到课文第三部分第一句写到 Heading deeper into the heart of Rio, you'll discover a wealth of cultural gems. 深入里约的市中心，你会发现丰富的文化瑰宝。好，句子里面的 head 在这边是当动词，它就有前往、朝着什么前进的意思。那么后面可以接介系词啊，或是副词，像我们就可以用 head to 或者是 head for 加上名词来表达前往某地。还有你也可以用 head back表示回去 head home 回家 head north 朝北方前进等等。我们造两个例句 They left the restaurant and headed for the movie theater. 他们离开餐厅并前往电影院 He headed back to the office after lunch. 就是说他吃完午餐后就回办公室了。好，那另外文中他用到 a wealth of cultural gems 来表达丰富的文化瑰宝。那这个名词 wealth 在这边表示丰富大量，我们可以用 a wealth of 加上复数可数名词或不可数名词去表达丰富的什么大量的什么，像 a wealth of information 大量的资讯， a wealth of natural resources 是丰富的天然资源。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Mountainous. People from all over go to the mountainous region for its challenging hiking trails. Refuge. During the typhoon, the school served as a refuge for families seeking safety from the storm. Layer. The scientists' research revealed new layers of knowledge that changed our understanding of the universe. Horizon. As the sun set, the orange and pink shades painted the sky along the horizon. Engineering. David decided to study engineering in university because he always dreamed of building impressive buildings. Tile. The bathroom floor was covered with white tiles, making it easy to clean. Colonial. In history class, we learned about the colonial period when Europeans established colonies in different parts of the world.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.